My count has reached 100 with the grace of God. I have accomplished my mission. I will make sure my mission and my message reach the world. I'm going to make many mothers weep. I will send their sons to the next world without coffins and through the gutter.
These horrifying and graphic confessional words were revealed to the police through a letter which they received in the Daily Mail in late November 1999. Lahore, the capital city of Punjab Province in Pakistan, also called as a city of gardens, home to more than 10 million people, are where the true story of this paedophilic beast unraveled. What seemed a normal day for police in Lahore turned for the worse with this confessional letter, which detailed the names of the victims and gave a minute-by-minute account as to what had happened to them and how they were all murdered. Every grim detail was in there, from how long it took to dissolve a body to how much the acid cost him. He then gave the address for this alleged house of horror, 16B Ravi Road. The Deputy Superintendent of Police, Tariq Kamboh, who was stationed in that area, took a couple of police officers to investigate. After knocking on the door, the homeowner, 38-year-old Javed Iqbal, appeared. The police quizzed him on the letter. When they asked him for more details, Javed quickly became unpredictable and volatile, grabbing a gun and saying that he would take his own life if they didn't go away. So the police left. They didn't question him further. They didn't question him about the gun. They didn't even enter the property, which was a grave negligence on their part.
This man can't be a killer of 100 kids. He's a nutcase.
Kamboh laughingly passed a comment to his fellow officers. As they walked away from there, they had no idea that they had just encountered a beast, a man who would turn out to be the worst serial killer in Pakistan's history. November 22nd, 1999, a package was delivered to the office of the chief crime reporter of the Daily Jang newspaper, Jamil Chishti. Upon opening the package, Jamil discovered a handwritten letter and a series of photographs. The letter read as follows.
Today I have completed my target of killing 100 children. I'm enclosing photographs of the victims, who they are and where they're from. Through your newspaper, I want to tell the world what I have done. I'm giving you my 32-page diary. It's my full confession of 100 murders. If you go to my house, you will find all the evidence. When you discover what I've done, it will shock the world.
The parcel contained the 32-page diary he had mentioned in the letter and a notebook giving horrific and disturbing details of each murder. Jamil, overwhelmed by what all he had read, wasted no time and he, along with his colleague, went straight to the address mentioned in the letter, 16B Ravi Road. They climbed the wall and jumped over the abandoned property which had been padlocked. Once inside, they found clothes, shoes and children's board games piled up alongside. Sleeping pills were littered on the floor. Several blue plastic barrels were also dotted around. Both of them could smell something strange and unpleasant all around the house. Cards were pinned on the walls giving details of alleged victims and how they had been murdered. One of the cards read,
The bodies in the house have been deliberately not disposed of, so that the authorities will find them after my suicide. I'm going to jump into the river Ravi to commit suicide.
As they carried on looking through the property, the strange smell still hung in the air, so they decided to take the lid off one of the barrels. What they found appeared to be human remains floating in an unknown liquid. So the newspaper decided to take the story to print, and on 3rd December 1999, they ran the shocking headline, Claim of Murder of 100 Kids. They printed the photos and names of 57 missing boys who were now presumed murdered. The shoes and clothes that had been found were taken to the police station in order for them to be identified and linked to any of the missing boys. Parents broke down in uncontrollable sobs as they recognized the clothes of their children. The police ran tests on the liquid in the barrels and found that it contained a combination of sulfuric and hydrochloric acid. They had a confession. They had detailed account of murders. They had all the evidence. They had a crime scene. And they had several bodies. But the only thing they did not have was a suspect in custody. Javed Iqbal was on the run, and the largest manhunt Pakistan had ever witnessed was launched. It had now been a week since the letter and confession were received, but still police could not find Javed Iqbal, and the hunt was ramping up to find him. Weeks had passed, and it seemed that Javed had just vanished into thin air. Just as police were losing hope, on 29 December 1999, Javed Iqbal finally surrendered. He walked straight into the office of Daily Jang and told the staff working there,
I am Javed Iqbal, killer of 100 children. I hate this world. I'm not ashamed of my actions, and I am ready to die. I have no regrets. I killed 100 children. I could have killed 500 children, but the pledge I had taken was of 100 children, and I never wanted to violate this.
मेरे पास आज भी इतने पैसे थे कि मैं ये सिलसिला जारी रख सकता था।
अगर कल को आपने जो जितने मारे हैं उनमें से 3-4 बच्चे।
Those working in the office were stunned. What was even more surprising was that he spoke to the journalists there, detailing them about how he committed all the murders and disposed of the bodies. Employees of the newspaper quickly contacted the authorities, who soon had the building completely surrounded. He was swiftly placed under arrest as the pieces of puzzle were coming together. More and more was coming out about Javed and his disturbing past. He was the sixth child of a wealthy family. He had 4 sisters and 5 brothers. His father was a successful businessman, and both he and his wife doted on the son. He was spoilt and pampered, constantly told how brilliant and how intelligent he was compared to his other siblings. Early on in his childhood, he showed signs of serious aggression. He would physically attack other children and would also kill animals. His brother said as a boy he was violent and eccentric. He would give a lot of headache to our parents. According to his brother, if Javed wanted something and his father refused, he would threaten to harm himself until he got his own way. Upon leaving Islamia school, he went to attend Islamia College. In 1983, after years of refusing his parents to arrange a marriage for him, he announced that he would be getting married to a bride of his own choice. But just after a year, this marriage broke up. Javed remarried, but that marriage too couldn't last beyond a year. After failed marriages, he set up a shop selling video games. He offered low rates for young boys and would give them things for free. One particularly insidious thing he would do was to drop money on the floor near a boy. Once the boy picked up the money, Javed would make up a story of his money being stolen and that he needed to search everyone. This search would take place in a separate room behind the shop, where he would strip search the boys. He would then brutally, sexually attack the boys. Sometimes he would let them keep the money as a gesture of goodwill. Soon word spread out in the locality about his behavior with the boys. Parents in the area disallowed the children to visit his shop, so he started both an aquarium shop and also a gym in a bid to get boys. Later on, his brother revealed that the family had found out about Javed's paedophilic disorder in 1991 after being taken into custody for raping 2 young boys. In 1995, he began building a mansion. As his extravagant spending continued, he was no longer living within his means. His money was rapidly running out. In 1997, his finances were in serious trouble, so he sold his mansion and moved to a different part of the city. But even there, he would hunt for boys and after beating them, would rape them. Located in Lahore is the largest Sufi shrine in South Asia, home to destitute and needy. This was one of his hunting grounds. He knew there would be young boys looking for food and shelter, and in September of 1998, Javed came across an attractive 18-year-old youth. He offered that kid a job and he agreed to go back to his house. Javed would later rape him, and this continued for many days. Then one night, while Javed was asleep on the bed, the boy along with one of the captive boys attacked Javed with the butt of a rifle that had been kept in the house. He alleged that the 18-year-old had carried out an assault on him. As the sound of screams echoed around the house, neighbors ran to investigate. They found Javed lying on floor covered in blood with a head injury. Javed Iqbal could not lie his way out of this one. Enraged, the neighbors threw him out of the locality. Javed was unconscious in hospital for roughly 3 weeks. The assault resulted in a broken jaw and fractured skull. As his money continued to run out, he moved to a small house, 16B Ravi Road, where this beast was born. Javed was set on revenge.
I was so badly beaten. My head was crushed, my backbone broken, and I was left crippled. I hate this world. My mother cried for me. I want 100 mothers to cry for their children. I did it to avenge an attempt on my life by my boys, the death of my mother, and injustice in this society.
In May 1999, his depraved killing spree would begin. 100 runaway boys would disappear in just 147 days.
After the success of my first murder, I decided my mission should begin.
Javed Iqbal would later say that he had experimented with acids to find the best way of dissolving a body. He mixed two together and then murdered a boy before placing his body into the barrel of acid. Within 24 hours, the young boy's body had disintegrated.
Friday, 13th August, murdered 3 boys today. They didn't belong to their parents or anyone else. No one will miss them. I would trick my victims into coming back to my house. When the bodies had dissolved, I poured the liquid down the toilet. My neighbors complained about the smell of the acid, and I decided to empty the barrels into a nearby river instead. No one suspected what I was doing. No one cares.
Following his staggering confession, the police would spend the next few days talking to the families of children who had gone missing. Parents flocked to the police station to look at the photographs and clothing that had been found in the house. Over the days that followed, 57 children were identified from the photographs or clothes. A spokesperson of the police said some of the children whose pictures or clothes were identified were among the city's poorest. Some were beggars, and others were among the army of children in Pakistan who work on the streets selling things. They left their homes in search of work and never returned. Based on evidence that had been found in the house, the police were able to identify more than 80 boys. On 18th February 2000, Javed Iqbal was formally indicted. Murder charges were filed against him and his accomplices, 17-year-old Sajid and 2 minors who pleaded not guilty. The prosecution had 105 witnesses, 73 of which were family members of the children. The court also heard from handwriting experts and driver of the rickshaw that one of Javed's employees had paid to take the acid-filled barrels to the river. Throughout the court proceedings, Javed's story continued to morph and change. He would say that the children were alive and all these clothes found in the house were all second-hand ones that he had picked up. He would then later on say that he had committed the murders as an act of revenge for the injustice meted out to him. During the trial, Special Public Prosecutor argued that Javed's written confession was not only a valid piece of evidence, but that there were witnesses who could corroborate its authenticity. People who had seen him with young boys who had later gone missing. The amount of clothes and shoes that had been found at the property that were later confirmed to belong to boys who had been reported missing provided yet another weight to the case. The prosecutor also highlighted the previous allegations that had been made against Javed, allegations of rape and sexual abuse, highlighting a very disturbing pattern of behavior. The trial would last for 2 months. An outrage from public would often come to surface outside the courtroom, with people calling for Javed to be executed. On March 16, 2000, the courtroom was packed as the verdicts were read out. The 2 minors were convicted and received life imprisonment for their roles. 17-year-old Sajid was also convicted and sentenced to death. Javed Iqbal was convicted of 100 murders. He was given 100 death sentences. The judge said that Javed Iqbal should meet the same fate that he had subjected his victims to. He should be strangled with the same chain he had killed his victims with 100 times. His body should be cut into 100 pieces and put in acid as the same way as he did with his victims. However, the country's interior minister said that the sentence was not permissible as Pakistan is a signatory country to the Human Rights Commission. Hence, such punishments are not allowed. On Tuesday, 9th October 2001, in Block 7 of the maximum security prison, Javed Iqbal was found dead in his cell. Found dead in another cell was Sajid. It was alleged by a prisoner that Javed and Sajid had committed suicide between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. The prisoner also alleged that the guard on duty had said, "I was asleep," when the incident took place. The prisoner stated that when the guard had woken up, he had observed that two men were hanging in their cell. The impact of this case cannot be understated. It is a story that has captured and horrified people in equal measure for more than 20 years. The horror, brutality, and scale of it all still is lingering in public consciousness. For the loved ones left behind, knowing the appalling deaths these boys were met with is horrifying, knowing that so many had gone missing and nobody had noticed, knowing that there had been opportunities to catch and properly punish him for his crimes against children, but these had been missed due to sheer negligence by the authorities. There are now 100 families that are missing their sons, grandsons, brothers, nephews and cousins. For many of these boys, hopes and dreams of a better life in the city were cruelly and brutally snatched away. Words almost seem futile when trying to wrap up a case like this. But the least one can do is to think of these boys and their families and hope that such atrocities never ever happen again.